Thank you. So Grace and the Island of Missing Assignments, I came up with some ideas while I was teaching face-to-face originally, because students would often ask if they could have an extra day, and then I'm going, what's fair, what's not fair? And so, but you might even wonder, like, why would we even want to give grace? Well, I actually asked some of my students, past and present, to share pictures of them doing life. Okay, so you might actually recognize Brian. We got the instructor in the lower right corner there with a child that's autistic. I have a student in the upper left who participates in beauty pageants, and we have a few tired looking CNAs. Two of my students this semester had babies halfway through the semester. Like, what were they thinking? I have students that are on political asylum. I guess that's the right word for it. And so we understand that their jobs come first, and I want their families to come first. Actually, in the lower left picture, that's just a family who took advantage of beautiful weather and decided to have some family fun time. And I remember one semester, a student came to the very end of the course. She was getting an A, wonderful grades, and she just kind of disappeared. And I was able to track her down finally by text, I think. Turned out she had made an emergency trip to Georgia to get custody of a relative in an emergency situation. So yeah, life happens. And then you go, what's fair? There was the one time I got a text photo of a student's daughter's bloody toe at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, begging for more time. You know, of course I'm going, okay, did this actually happen? And why are you waiting until 10 o'clock at night to even start your assignment in the first place? And then you're going, is this the first time this has happened? You're trying to keep track, making notes. I know some people are really good with Excel spreadsheets, and I don't want to do all that. And then I go, well, what about Bob? Bob, in this case, being the student who told his family, I'm sorry, we can't go. I know the weather's beautiful. I know everybody else is going to Six Flags, but we can't because I have this assignment due. And I just think that that's not fair. So, so I basically give everybody, up front an extra 7 days. That's what my policy is. It's an extra 7 days. And I'll be saying up front, it's less work. And especially if you have ever taught a class in Connect or MindTap and a student wants extension, you've got to go in there. Now, I've done course design with Connect and MindTap, and I'm pretty proficient, but even still, you've got to go in and give that one student an extension. And maybe, what about the other guy, like I said, Bob, who didn't even ask, because some students are hesitant to ask. So this way I can be fair up front and give everybody an extra 7 days off, an extra 7 days grace period. So here's how it works. And this actually makes it easier for grading too. If the week starts, like say on the 23rd, and I send the announcement out on Monday, let's see. Yeah, I send it, well, now I'm doing courses opening, work due on Monday. So we've got assignment due on the 22nd. And the students have all the way up until the 29th to complete. And I send an announcement saying on Monday, the 22nd, for example, saying, okay, everybody, you still have time to complete your discussion board or to complete work from module 2 or whatever. And I always include a link directly to the module or a link directly to important assignments. And I say, you've got time today to finish this, but work that was done today, you'll have until next week to complete. You know, I'll say module 2 is closing today, module 3 is open for another week. And this way, I have students, if work is due on the 29th, you'll have students who are turning it in on the 23rd and 24th, maybe even the 21st. So you're getting that one long research paper assignment spread out over all this time instead of having it all in one day. And to me, that just makes it a lot less stress for me. Now, there are some assignments you want to grade all at once. I understand that. Some people say we're teaching bad habits, you know, and I say, okay, we're not teaching them to get ready for the real world. Well, in the real world, there are rules to follow. This is my rule. We're following it. So what's the harm in that, right? And I've been told, thankfully, I don't have to worry about it, but I've been told that even mortgage companies have a grace period. Credit card companies have a grace period, utilities, all those have grace periods. So I figured, what the heck, why not? There are only negatives I could see in this are assignment follow-up. For example, when I do a follow-up on discussion board, I do something like this. Yeah, so my discussion board follow-ups are sometimes video, not always, but I try to make it, the discussion boards are a little easier because it's basically, I don't participate in every discussion, and I tell my students up front, I won't participate. I'll be checking in every day. I'm reading your posts, but I don't participate. They've got enough posts to read, and studies show that came up in a few sessions this week. Studies show that students are hesitant and they back off a little bit if you don't, if you're participating too much in the discussion boards anyway. So in a discussion board, I'll prompt maybe by asking a question. Sometimes I share a meme or a cartoon just for fun. And then my follow-up at the end of the week would be a more general, this is my take, my comment in the discussion board. Or like this, this is an example below of something that I might comment on. I don't necessarily want to say anything that would give it away. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to allow students an extra week and to do an assignment, you don't want to make any changes or corrections that the students who are waiting will have an advantage. Which reminds me here, this is another negative. You want to have your TEDdy tests set up so that students will see the correct answers only after everybody has submitted. So if the assignment closes on the 19th, for example, you would say, let students see the correct answers on the 19th. Now, it's not so much of an issue if it's a shuffled test. Like I have a few courses, I think Business 101 is one of them, where there is a practice exam. Students can take it as many times as they want. There's a pool of maybe 300 questions. They get, 20 or 50 each time, and they're all going to be different. Then it's not so much of an issue, but there is that option. I also try to stay on top of students, especially at the beginning of the semester. I will send an announcement or use this message students who. So for example, in this midterm exam, at the top of the grade column, click here, message students who, and when you click on that, you have the option of messaging students who have not submitted yet, or messaging students who got less than whatever grade. And I will message students who haven't completed and say, just a reminder, even though I do allow an extra week, be sure you don't take advantage of that too often because you're really going to regret it at the end of the semester. Are there questions, by the way?
Yes, Lynn, I was just going to stop you for a second. So just to clarify and to make sure that I'm understanding exactly as what everybody else is. So your assignments say, and I'm going to use simple dates because it's easier in my head. Everything's due on the 1st. Module 1's due on the 1st. But you actually don't, you tell everybody the due date is the 1st or the 22nd there, but the assignment is actually still open until the 29th for students to submit, and you don't take any points off or anything. That's just the grace period, if you will. So you have in my mind, I would say you have a soft deadline on the 22nd and a hard deadline on the 29th.
Yeah.
Would that be correct?
That's a good way to, no, that's a good way to look at it. And I'll show you in a little while how I set up the closes for the assignment. So yeah, soft deadline, and the neat thing about it is, okay, so if the work is done on the 29th, instead of getting a picture of somebody's bloody toe on the 28th, which I might still get, and they'll say, oh, I'm taking my daughter to the emergency room, can I have some extra time? Or they email me on the 25th and say, I've got to go out of town on an emergency. No problem. You have until the 5th, just like everybody else. Just like everybody else. I want to take my kids to the park. It's beautiful weather. They're not going to ask that, but they have till the 5th like anybody else. Now, if a student asks me on the 31st and say, oh, I know I missed the deadline. It was due on the 29th. It's now the 31st. Can I still submit? No problem. You have until the 5th like everybody else. So it's being fair in advance. You're giving everybody the same chances. Now, when I will show you in a minute. We'll get to a slide here in a minute. because I want to go in order so I don't confuse myself.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so grading the last week, if you have a final assignment, like a research paper that's due in module 8, the last day of class, I've always avoided that anyway, because again, I don't want students turning in work and then I've got to take the entire weekend off to grade everything all at once. So I've always tried to make grading easy in module 8. And for example, which class in business law, I think it is right now, there was a final project due in 8 and 7. I moved it to module 7. It was in module 8. I moved it to module 7. I also break up high stakes assignments. Remember that one student I was telling you about who went to Georgia to pick up a relative that she had to take custody of? In that class at that time was a final assignment paper that was worth 20% of your grade. Like I told you, she had a straight A going, pretty much like a 95%. And she was going to drop down to a C if she did not do that 20% grade. And fortunately, because I was able to get a hold of her, find out what's going on, she wound up with an extension. But in as many cases as possible, like this is from Business 105, which I design and mentor. I divided it up into 3 parts. So because I noticed when I was in school, some of the hardest part was just getting started. And I saw a meme about this once. Things are getting serious. I got my title page done. And that's basically what this does. So you got the title page, the introduction, and 1 reference, 30 points right there. And in this case, I added a submitting to tutor.com. Another question?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Now you walk.
So I try to avoid as much as possible any manual grading the last week, unless it's something. Sorry, I think somebody needs to turn off a volume, I think, if you would, please. So anyway, I try to avoid manual grading at the last week. So like in my business class, business law class, I moved that final paper up to module 7. Now then you might think, well, but that's moving it up fast. But then they virtually still have all of module 8 to get it done because they have extra time. Okay. And this is where we come with the island of missing assignments. I also allow every student, this is an assignment. It's in the Commons if you want to look for it. And so it allows every student a chance to make up 1 assignment. Now they've gotten all this extra time to begin with. So, and if they miss a major assignment, worth 50, 60 points in module 4, sometimes I will message all students who missed that assignment and say, just a reminder, you can make this up in module 7. So the way the missing assignments, island of missing assignment works, let's say you missed 100 points in module 4 because you forgot to turn in a paper or forgot to do the final exam. You missed that assignment even though you had an extra week. Okay, you got 0 out of 100, or you got 0 out of 80. This assignment is worth 0 points, but you can get up to that number of points here. So it's a kind of a trade-off. You got a 0 out of 100. Now you could get 100 out of 0. I did have one student who turned in a paper there way ahead of time, even though it wasn't due. She thought that was going to be an automatic perfect score. No, it doesn't work that way. It says if you miss an assignment from earlier in the course, here's your chance to submit. You only get 1. This is also a good way for me to keep track that every student gets 1 missing assignment, and it's all in 1 spot in that assignment area. So if they want me to open up the midterm exam for them, they leave me a message in this assignment area. If they want to turn in a paper, they turn it in this assignment area. Okay. And they have to tell me what assignment it is and how many points it's worth. Any questions on that before I move on?
Do you include quizzes in this as well, or just assignments?
I do include quizzes. I wasn't including discussions because I do have a very strict due date on discussions, and I let my students know that up front. I should have mentioned that earlier. I don't like to keep discussions open forever. And so my discussions don't have that extra week. I open up discussions a little early. I'll show you that in the next slide, I think. Open up discussions early, and then I close it on the due date. But then I've kind of changed even on this before. I'm going, if there's a student who has done every assignment and all they've missed is a discussion board and they really want those extra 30 points, it's not a big deal. Most of those students don't need the island of missing assignments. And I've actually toyed with the idea of letting students resubmit something if they feel like they didn't get as good a grade as they wanted. So
That's
yeah,
what I was going to ask, because you have the student that's turned everything in and has been a good student, then this doesn't help them any.
right.
Kimberly, you have your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I do something a little similar. I give them a golden ticket. So they have a golden ticket they can use one time in the class. But I limit it though, so it can't be used for a paper, like in an English class. It has to be something that's below a certain amount of points. And then if they don't need it, and say they get to the end and they did everything, but maybe they didn't get full points on something, they just go into that assignment and they type golden ticket, and then I give them the full points.
I like that.
And I started it with COVID, but I think I'm going to keep doing it because
Yeah.
they just know that they have that opportunity there. And if something happens, then they just type golden ticket in there, and that's all I need to know.
So how do you keep track of how many golden tickets somebody has and when they're being used?
Well, after they say they're going to use it, then in my grading comments, I put golden ticket. So
But like, do you have a spreadsheet somewhere of everybody's names and how many
right
they,
here,
because everybody has one?
yeah, everybody has one. If I think that I've seen it before, I'll go back and check, but usually,
Okay.
yeah.
Lauren is asking, so is it okay that the student's missing work is shown to everyone in this class? Is this the FERPA problem? They're missing
No,
work.
this is,
shown.
yeah, this is not showing to anybody except the student. The student submits this like an assignment, like everything else. In other words, instead of submitting, they would go to the island of missing assignments, just like they would any other assignment. These are the instructions in the assignment, and they submit their paper there.
And Justin made a good point that you can also use the notes feature in the grade book, and that's where you can put the golden ticket, for example.
Good idea. Okay, well, I'm going to move on. Okay, then.
Go.
And one last thing. Yes, my friend Mark Bader shared this with me. Maybe you guys know this stuff already, but I just learned this last year. If you go to the assignments tab and then click up here in the top little 3 dots, you can edit the assignment dates all at one time. So here is where I have, I set up the due dates. So here we have all the module 1 work due June 14th, module 2, June the 21st, and then I just close it a week later. So that way there's no issue of how long something is kept open, because after June 21st, they can no longer open up that assignment. Now for the discussion, I have it open the 10 days before. I was going to show this in another demo for the game show. I didn't have time for that. But basically the assignment for the discussion opens up a few days, because I know students like to work on weekends. So they will have the discussion boards will be open on Thursday or Friday, and then do 10 days later. So they have both weekends to work and all that time in between, and then they just close it and they can't do it anymore. That's all I have, except for questions to answer. I see a lot of stuff in the chat.
Yeah, Justin also pointed out that you should also update the available from dates to coincide with the first day of class for financial aid reasons. So
actually all of my assignments are open from day 1, all of them, except for the discussion boards.
Yeah, Lynn, I'll add a little bit of clarity verbally here for you.
Thank you, Justin.
So keep in mind that students have access to the course 2 days before the course starts. So if you don't update that available from date, it will coincide automatically with the date that the students get access to the course. So if they were to happen to submit an assignment prior to the actual first day of class in Banner, then that could cause some financial aid issues for those students.
If they turn it in early?
Yes, because they're not supposed to be completing work in a course prior to the start date by financial aid rules.
So you're talking about module 1. I should have all those module 1 assignments open on the first day.
The first day of class, according to Banner, yes, not the start date of the course in Ivy Learn.
Okay, maybe I'm not following you.
I have a question, Justin. So are you saying that since the class opens a couple days before, that they should have access to anything that's an assignment.
Yeah, so they will have access to everything. So when you change that available from date, that simply that prevents them from submitting the assignment. So they can look
Gotcha.
around the course, do whatever they want
Oh.
while they have access. But what we don't want them to do is actually submit an assignment, because if we were ever to be audited for financial aid reasons, then that would raise a red flag.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either. So basically, like for the only thing I've ever had available from dates for is discussion boards, and this one is for module 3. You're saying for module 1 discussion board and all of the module 1 assignments, I should have the start date added in there.
Yeah. So if I want to prevent them from there could be a downstream assignment I don't want them to be able to submit until later, right? So you can adjust those, but probably to put a finer point on it, the available from date should always be set for any time after the course start date and banner. So that way you can, like, I may not want them to submit an assignment until, week 5, right? I don't even want them to have the ability to do that, and that's fine. And you can set that there, but just as it's like a point of order, I would just update those dates on all assignments to coincide with the start date and banner. So for instance, for an IB online course, for this year, we start on a Wednesday. So I would just automatically update all of my dates to the 18th, so that they can't possibly submit an assignment early.
Nice to know.
Truth be told, what are the odds that something could happen, right? But we're just guarding against the eventuality that we could cause an issue.
Yes, nice to know. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know some instructors, and my son, where he goes to school, their modules are kept locked until that week. And I don't really care for that, because except for now what you're saying, Justin, I understand. But like for module 3, module 4, if a student wants to work on that during the second week of class, I'm fine with that. But I will pay attention to that and just put available for all of my assignments, other than like the discussion I do want to wait for, but everything else would be like, say, in this case.
Something else, but sorry, Justin.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a link to a knowledge base article that we created around course availability that also addresses that. There's a little paragraph in there, and then also a link out to how to manipulate this, in case you were all wondering. That way you've got some resources as well. Something
that I do a little differently, Lynn, in my course, I teach medical terminology. That's like my baby of a class. I mentor that, but I only open through the midterm, and I don't open. I open through module 4. And then I'll open the rest of the course. I especially did this during a 16-week class, because I wanted people to not work on stuff over spring break, because I really think that it's important that students take a break. And then if somebody specifically asks me, then I would open it. But if nobody asks, then I don't open it over spring break. But I don't mind if they work ahead, but I don't want them to get too far beyond knowing what they need to know for the midterm, because there's a lot, because it builds so much.
Yes, and you know what I noticed back when students had to buy access codes for things like MindTap, I had a student who I suspect was trying to complete the entire, and this was a course I did not set up, and I didn't remember how or didn't know how at the time, but I think he was trying to complete his entire course during that free trial period. And I was told that I guess we can't do anything about it at this point. We have other questions? I don't hear anything. I hope I didn't mute anybody.
Feel free to speak or to type in the chat box.
And I'm reading the chat. So yes, everybody has a 7-day grace period right off the bat, making it, I feel like that makes it fair to even those students who would never dream of asking for extra time. And yes, Rebecca says, will they regret this at the end of that's why I remind them all the time, if they're continued early on in the semester, I will use the message all feature to remind them, please don't get in the habit of doing this. But for the most part, I haven't really noticed any problems, except for a few students who are lagging behind right off the bat. And Roland, I didn't make that change to business 105 for everything. I mean, this is the policy that I have in my course. Business 105 does have that addition for 3 parts for the final project, with students having to go to tutor.com. And in Connect, there is a 7-day grace period, but you can certainly, you could certainly, if you wanted to, just go ahead and keep using that. Now, I noticed that, and it's funny, I love the third-party publishers, but sometimes it does get confusing. Like with Connect, the Smart Book, I think it's the Smart Book that, because I had to build in the 7-day grace period but it's in MindTap, I think, that there was no way to change it for, I forget, they don't call it the Smart Book. I forget what that is. There was no way to change that and allow that extra time. And even if you keep the assignment open, every time you sync your course, the student's grade, the student, whatever grade the student gets is done. So in other words, there was no time frame built in. I don't know. See, this is where I'm stumbling over my words. You just want to know up front what's allowed in the third party thing, because there was one course I had where I was allowing extra time, and I had to actually go into that course. I think it was a MindTap course. I had to go in every week and change the due date in order. So now I think if I was teaching that course again, I would just say, okay, you have free reign, an extra week on everything but the book, because you want to read the book first anyway. And if you're not getting at least the textbook read that first week, then I guess you're really behind.
So
Maria?
Lynn, Bob had a question also. What is the due date on the calendar? Is it the regular due date, or the hard extended due date? Which do you put on the calendar?
The soft due date is in the calendar, because it will show that at the bottom of the syllabus, it will show the due date.
Right.
Regular due date. The other date is shown just as so the courses, like in the modules, it will show available until June 21st. And I'm going through the chat, so I see Laureen's question, is it okay that students missing work is shown to everyone? Yeah, that it doesn't show to anybody. They don't see anything, just like they don't see any other assignments. Maria, did you have a question? I thought I saw your.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
My question is, when students take exams, quizzes, they're allowed to see their answers after the due date. So which date that is in your class? The first week, or that extended time, that after which time they're able to see, the correct answers, and if they make mistakes?
It would be depending on how you do it. Like I said, if it's an exam that let students practice. I think it's Business 101 now, before they have the practice exam. Now before they did, when we did away with the proctoring, there is a practice exam in Business 101. And so they can take that as many times as they want. And so they're seeing those answers anytime, I believe. But
yes,
that's why this says here, you can choose to have the answers hidden on the date available. Because one of the guys that I work with was an Ivy Tech student. His picture was in that first collage I made. And he showed me one day on his phone. He says, look, if I wanted to, I could sell these answers. I could see them all. I don't remember what course it was he was taking, but yeah, so that is something to consider. But if it's an exam where students could see it repeated as many times as they want, then I don't know that there's so much of an issue, is there? Maybe I'm wrong on that.
When they take practice exam, that's one thing. But let's say like in business law, they take midterm exam. It's not practiced because of the pandemic, but students should be able to see the results after the due date. And let's say that someone submitted already on 25th, and other students have 7 days, that grace period. So whoever submitted already, they know the answers.
Right. That's why I say that you want to go in here and make it so that you hide the correct answers at the date available.
Okay.
I mean, I suppose that if my business law student is friends with another business law student who's, who's instructors and doing that, but they have ways to check everything anyway, I guess. I don't know.
I don't ever make any answers available for a high stakes exam like a midterm or a final. I don't ever
Yeah,
do that. And that's just me. I mean, well, not just me, but that's my teaching
yeah.
philosophy.
You know
I
what
will
the-
on quizzes and things, but not on
Yeah.
a high stakes exam.
Well, which makes you wonder too, like, I don't remember which class I took this picture from. It's a screenshot. I don't remember what class that's from. So that's interesting. And it says quiz. So I don't know which quiz or exam it could be. That's a good question.
But if I may, if you teach Ivy online classes, you don't have those options. You follow the class that the way it is designed, right?
You should be, yes.
Okay, so if that's the case, that you allow students to see correct answers after the due date, I have
Yeah,
to,
that's a curriculum committee decision and the course developer.
which means they follow.
Yeah, I know that for my program
Mhm.
and healthcare specialists, we don't give answers to the midterms or the finals for sure.
Yeah, I'll have to look at mine because the classes that I have that I mentor don't have a final exam anyway. Business 105 has a project, a paper. Interesting. But all you got to do, but if you're going to do the extra 7-day grace period, then all you got to do is just have the correct answers and just put a new date in there so that they're not seeing it past the date available.
Mhm.
That's why I've got the screen here, just to remind you that you've got to be careful about that.
Okay, thank you.
I think students are going to they're going to get answers no matter how they're going to find it. It's just so frustrating to see what they find on Chegg and Course Hero. That should be illegal.
Listen, I found one of the assignments from one of my classes that I teach, the entire assignment online with my name on it, on the front page, everything. That's what students do.
Yes.
They share their assignments online and others take advantage of that.
Yes.
It just,
I don't know how that's legal. And
listen, I'm not going to chase them, but it's kind of interesting.
yeah. No, I have
read it.
I have reported a few students recently because if they plagiarize on you could tell it's another student's paper or a major Course Hero. I will just say, please take a look at your Turnitin score. I've got a little video tutorial that I include, and I say, please take a look and see why your score is so high and resubmit. And I have one student this semester who she just has not chosen to take advantage of that resubmitting, and I had to report her, which I hate doing, but she's had multiple chances and warnings. So, okay, let's see other questions.